Mr. Vikram Nair.
Mr. Speaker, I support this budget. I deal with three matters in my speech. First, the war in Ukraine and its implications for Singapore. Second, our response to COVID-19. And third, I have some suggestions in relation to public housing. First, on the war in Ukraine. The war broke out after the budget statement, but before this debate. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is the largest conflict on the European continent since World War II. There remain risks that this conflict may escalate further. The eruption of conflict has already created turbulence in financial and commodity markets. It is anticipated in the long term, various commodities may rise in prices, adding to inflation. I support the principal position that Singapore has taken in relation to this dispute. While we're not against any country, we stand firmly against this invasion as a violation of Ukraine's territorial sovereignty. As at the time of this speech, it remains the case that despite the violation of international law, Ukraine is largely fighting alone against Russia. However, the international community has been swift in taking action, including tough economic sanctions against Russia. This raises a number of related issues for us to consider. The first is that defense spending is vital, and we must ensure we have the capability and resources to survive in the event war is visited on us. While I expect we'll have more detail on the defense spending in MINDEF's Committee of Supply, and I filed several cuts on that, I think we need to remain committed to defense spending and national defense, even during times of peace. There will be many demands on our spending in coming years, and it is always tempting to say we should cut defense spending in times of peace. This would clearly be a mistake. The second is we must continue to maintain and build good and deep relations, as well as mutually beneficial economic ties with as many countries as possible. We hope never to go to war, but the stronger and deeper our ties with the world around us, the better our chances of avoiding war, and also of getting support from the international community in the event we are drawn into a war. It is always a big ask for others to join our conflict, but they may help in other ways, which will be vital. Third, and this is more short-term, I would also like to ask the Minister for Finance whether he sees any significant economic turmoil from the war in Ukraine on us, and whether any additional measures may be needed to be taken in the budget to provide for this. The second topic, coming to home more directly, is our response to COVID-19. Singapore has done an excellent job in handling this crisis. We have taken a generally cautious, science and evidence-led approach that has enabled us to achieve a high vaccination rate amongst the population and kept fatalities at a relatively low rate. The main price we have paid is living with social restrictions, which has taken a toll on both the economy and on the mental health of some of our people. Over the last few months, with Omicron spreading, COVID-19 has been affecting even many in our highly vaccinated population. I myself came down with COVID-19 in December when I was with my family in the UK. The UK's approach to COVID-19 was quite different from Singapore's, and while there were some restrictions in place, including requirements to wear masks indoors, many activities had resumed when we were there. This included football matches, dining at restaurants and eateries, and watching plays and performances. Of course, this is probably part of the reason I came down with COVID, as did my daughter. However, for both of us, the experience was not particularly bad. Although we had mild symptoms for a few days, we did not test positive until our pre-departure test, when my daughter and I tested positive. Thereafter, we isolated ourselves in line with the UK's guidelines at the time. However, within about 2 days, we were testing negative again, and our symptoms were relatively mild. In my case, just a slight sore throat and runny nose. As we spoke to more people, we realized that almost everyone knew someone or had family or friends who had come down with COVID, and some had come down with it themselves. For most, it was not debilitating, and life could go on. Of course, this is not to trivialize the COVID-19 experience. My wife and I had 3 shots of the vaccine, and this probably helped us in resisting and overcoming the virus. My daughter had the benefit of youth. However, from what we understand, the immunocompromised and those with pre-existing ailments remain vulnerable to serious complications. Additionally, there are studies in the UK pointing to a group of people who suffer symptoms called long COVID, which means they have different after effects following a COVID infection, some of which can be serious and debilitating. My suggestion is it may be better for us to proceed with plans to ease our restrictions and move closer to life as normal, but at the same time remind and educate the more vulnerable to take extra precautions. We need to reiterate the message that for those with COVID who are either asymptomatic or who have mild symptoms, there is no need to visit the doctor or the hospital. If necessary, skeptical employers who are asking for MCs can ask employees to send photographs of their current ART test for HR record purposes. I understand that even with the relatively large number of COVID cases that are emerging every day, our hospitals remain able to cope with those who need urgent assistance. Our population is amongst the best vaccinated in the world. I think we are ready to open up. The third topic I wish to discuss, quite different from the earlier two, relates to housing. And certainly at my Meet the People session cases, appeals in relation to housing are one of the common ones that come up. Housing affordability and availability is a concern for many residents. One of the curious issues that has arisen during the pandemic is that the housing market has heated up, both in the public and private sector. I think this is a combination of both increased demand and tightening supply. On the demand side, as more people are at home, the more people seek more personal space for themselves and family members. Thus, in large extended families, various members may wish to move out in houses of their own. New couples getting married want their own place, as it may be difficult to move in with either of the parents. Appeals for new flats emerge regularly in my MPS. On the supply side, BTO development has slowed down somewhat because of delays in construction. Additionally, the resale market has been limited by the imposition of minimum occupation periods, or MOPs, for both resale and new flats. I had filed parliamentary a question on this previously, and MND indicated in its response that it did not believe removing the MOP would increase housing supply and may encourage speculation because people who sell their flats may then look to buy new ones. I don't agree with this view entirely, and I would suggest perhaps initially HDB may wish to consider removing the MOP for resale flats while retaining it for new flats. This was actually the state of affairs for many years before MOP was extended to resale flats as well. Now, even without MOP, there are other disincentives to flipping flats, including the seller's stamp duty, which is higher if a flat is sold within a shorter holding period. In my view, one of the biggest drivers for new BTOs is that there is a huge price discrepancy between resale flats and new flats. So a new flat is both brand new and has a fresh lease, and it comes at a lower price. So as a result of this, there's almost no logical reason for anyone to buy a resale flat unless they feel they have no choice. At the same time, people who buy resale flats also get a feeling that they're getting a raw deal and are envious of those who get new flats at a lower price. This exaggerates the lottery effect of new flats, and those who are eligible for it, vis-a-vis those who are not, or who are lower on the priority list, start feeling more resentful. My humble suggestion would be to take away the MOP for resale flats, and this would at least create a greater supply of resale flats, which should ease their prices. Now, I also don't expect this to be a one-off effect, because if a resale flat is bought, it could still be put on the market again if needed, whereas now if a resale flat is bought, it would be out of the market for at least 5 years, hence constraining supply. So in that sense, every transaction constrains the resale market further. It would also give resale flat buyers the benefit of flexibility, at least one tangible benefit for the huge premium they would otherwise be paying. Currently, the two most common HDB appeals I get are either for new flats or to reduce the MOP, because families need to change their living arrangements as a result of changing circumstances. I think one of the reasons for the high demand for BTOs in particular is the disparity in prices between resale flats. And I would suggest that ideally the price of a BTO flat should be comparable to a price of BTO flat with the resale levy should be somewhat comparable to a resale flat, so that they become easy options for buyers to choose from. I believe that if more buyers are prepared to go to the resale market to buy their flats and the resale market is accessible, this would reduce the heavy demand we have for BTO flats at the moment. So if this disparity falls enough, such that government grants make buying resale flats as attractive as new flats, even for those who are house hunting. I think this would also further reduce the current pent-up demand for BTOs and the lottery effect people are feeling for this. So, Mr. Speaker, I've covered 3 different topics, important, I believe, in different ways, but I generally support this budget. Thank you.